How's it going?
Hey Josh, how are you doing? Great, man. Really good.
Yeah, I'm doing great, thank you. And very excited to speak to you as a fan of this film and this franchise. And I was so pleased when the when the first trailer came out, and we saw that the animation style had remained consistent with the first film. And I know you've talked about making some of the changes with the matte backgrounds and the anamorphic lenses, but was it really a priority for you to make sure that visual consistency remained into this new film, even though DreamWorks is obviously shaking up a lot of its franchises?
Yeah, I mean, for this one in particular, I think the first movie was too recent for us to start changing the style. There was no reason. I wanted definitely to have um, an identity that was definitely the same one between the two movies, and so that the audience would not get lost and would know exactly what it was. It's been thought out uh, uh, as a series of film, and so therefore I think there is it was important for me just to make sure that we kept the same visual identity. We still did some little upgrades, like obviously you just look at your work and you're like, oh my god, this I wish I would did this and push that, and so that's what we did. It's more like little upgrades than a big rethinking of what we had done in the first one.
Yeah, well, it looks great, and I've got to say, I'm a big wrestling fan, so I
Oh
really
yeah,
appreciated the Lucha Libre
totally.
wrestling tournament in the film. So, where was the
Yeah.
inspiration for that? Because what a fun standout moment in the film, I think it is.
It's very interesting. We had that sequence originally was completely different. It was more like a Coachella set piece. And then somehow we couldn't really do Coachella. There was, we was kind of like stepping on the territory of another movie that we're developing that was doing a similar set piece. So we're like, all right, let's change that idea. The color palette still remains the same, always, by the way. But I think Florian Marchix, our art director, um, we had been going to an event in LA called Lucha Vavoom, which is kind of like a spiced up version of Lucha Libre here. And we both loved this. And she was like, what if we do something like this? And I think it made so much sense because there was such a kinetic um, idea behind Lucha Libre, but even more so than the concert. Really, it was much more like you could imagine the characters going on the ring. You could imagine the characters fighting. You could imagine the same crowd of like crazy fans running after them, and so I think it became quickly a no-brainer. So again, it was at first something different that morphed into Lucha Libre, but it became something so iconic and so fun. And by the way, all of us were like, oh my god, we've all been to that kind of Lucha Vavoom event, and we all love it, and because of its outrageousness.
Yes, amazing. And I know when you were talking about the first film, you said that movies like Ocean's 11 and The Italian Job were inspirations, and I know with this one, maybe a little bit more Mission Impossible. So
Yeah.
how much fun was it really? I think one-upping Tom Cruise and Mission Impossible with some of the crazy things we see the bad guys do in this film.
Yeah, it's definitely that. It definitely was, I wanted like a big globe-trotting adventure. I wanted like a canvas that could support big action sequences and big set pieces, and definitely Mission Impossible is the perfect kind of inspiration for that. Uh, I mean, the idea was not necessarily to one up what Tom Cruise and Mission Impossible does, but it was more like how do we use our medium, which is animation, as best we can to really mine this kind of genre and just go over the top and push. I think that's the strength of this franchise. Really, we have a universe that is somewhat grounded, right? It's like real Los Angeles, more or less real Los Angeles. It's stylized, but it's Los Angeles, and it is the Annenberg Air Force Space Base, and there is like all the and or Hindenburg, not Annenberg, and it is Cairo, and it is all these places. But our characters are animals, and with animals you can kind of do whatever you want, and the animation style is pushed, and the rendering look is pushed, and therefore you really can push the limits of what you do physically with these characters. In the first movie, we also introduced silly ideas like a mind controlling meteorite, and therefore we already just opened doors to the absurd and the silliness. And I think thanks to that, we could, and thanks to a grounded base, but a silly world, um, the silliness of what we can explore with these characters, we could really push these action scenes. And I think it was a perfect medium for that.
Definitely. And you know, talking of those big set pieces, of course, in the final act, we do get that sequence with the rocket. So how pleased were you with how that all came together? And was it for you probably the most demanding sequence in the entire film to really choreograph and to get to where it was in the finished product?
Yeah. I mean, look, it's when you, I mean, this sequence I sketched out years ago,
Yeah.
with like a little sketches as we were developing the script. So it's always been in my head um, from the very beginning. So you can imagine when you sketch something like this, and then in the end you have this execution, this kind of like it's a sequence everybody talks about, like, right? And so it is like it become iconic really quickly, and it becomes so big and so pushed and so fun. Um, it's I mean, there's not anything that's better than that for me as a filmmaker, just to be able to just see this and be seeing a team that operates at their best artistic capacity and just delivers and work together so well to deliver such a spectacle. And I'm not just talking about the animators and the story artists and the lighters. I'm also talking about the sound guys and the sound design and the music, and all of it together makes it for such a fun, crazy ride. I mean, it's amazing. Obviously, it's amazing, and a studio like DreamWorks delivers on that kind of like premise and big ideas so well, which is incredibly exciting for us in the leadership team. Yes, it's been a very hard sequence to make, and I think the one thing we knew from the beginning was that we needed to make it feel somewhat realistic. I mean, like the rocket takeoff itself and the size of that rocket and the feeling you have when you see a rocket take off, where it's so loud, it's so big that you can't even listen. You have to just plug your ears if you want, like if you were to be a spectator of this. And we really use reference from NASA and other movies to really make it feel grounded and realistic, so that the stakes were there, and so that the audience is with the characters, like bated breath watching them run up that thing, so that the silliness of them running a rocket is like overtaken by the size of the stakes, and all of a sudden you're in space. I think that's the only way this could really have worked, so you believe in it somehow, even though it's totally pushed and silly and stupid, really. But I think it was the only way I thought it would work, and it does in a way. It really does take you up there, and you're in space. You're finally catching up your breath as an audience, and you're in zero G. But yeah, definitely massive challenge, but really really fun to do.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it comes together wonderfully. And you know, when we first met the bad guys, obviously they were bad guys, and then we saw them become quite heroic. And then coming into this film, they've got
Yeah.
that edge to them, and they're obviously framed, but they're kind of good guys now. So, what was the biggest challenge of kind of staying true to that original spirit of the first film? And what has it meant for you to see the way people have resonated with these characters and just fallen in love with them, and they've become iconic in the process?
Well, I mean, you when you have characters on screen like this that are so really work well together, and I'm talking about like, first of all, a crazy good cast that can work together this well, give their voices to characters like that, and it feels like an ensemble, that and those characters that are like completely synthetic, right? They are just totally made up, but the animators bring so much truth to them that you really think they exist. Doing, pursuing their adventure in the second one is obviously amazing. The challenge there, to your point, was now they are good, and did we lose a bit of their DNA? Because in their DNA, their core, they are bad, and that's when they are the most fun, when they are bad, because they do fun stuff that always excited me. Like stealing something, a car chase. That's what's fun to see them. Like, it's much more fun than seeing them behind a desk or living a regular life, right? So the challenge on this one was like, how do we in the first movie, I think the thing for me that made like was so what I loved them the most was not when they were training to be good with Mr. Professor Marmon. It was either before that or after that. And I think that the same problem happened in the second one. They're trying to reinsert society, and now they are faced with real life problems. But I wanted kind of like quickly to get them out of that, so that we can just have a really fun adventure, action-packed adventure. So I think the idea of a one last job, which is such a tropey thing but totally efficient, it was there from the beginning, where we could just suck them back into a life of crime, and obviously leading them to the final accomplishment, which was now they're on the side of good, but mine their knowledge, their skill set to do cool stuff, but for the good reasons, you know. So it was like the whole second journey is that is like bad is boring, good is boring, but then how can we keep them good but still be excited and fun, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Well, Pierre, this is a brilliant sequel to a really, I think, a instant classic, the first movie, and this one as well. So I cannot wait for a third one, hopefully. But thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thanks, Josh. Thank you so much. Thanks for
Great to
coming.
meet you. Congrats on the film, Pierre. Thank you so much.